Hey, gorgeous. Welcome to season 6 of the Hormone Puzzle Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Kela Smith, a holistic integrative doctor specializing in fertility and hormone health. If you're looking for insights into hormones, fertility, and all things related, you've come to the right place. Tune in weekly as we interview amazing experts in the field of women's health, breaking down those hormone walls, nerding out on nutrition, and having way too much fun. Whether you're beginning your journey or you've been struggling for years, we're finally going to help you put those pieces of your hormone puzzle back together so that you can get and stay pregnant and eliminate all your hormone-related symptoms for good. Are you ready? This season, we're focusing closely on fertility and hormone health with an amazing lineup of expert guests sharing groundbreaking knowledge, bringing you stories and advice that will support you in your fertility journey. We're here to lift your spirits, give you a virtual hug and inspiration, as well as empower you to take charge of your fertility and your health. Thank you so much for tuning in and for being an amazing listener. So now, let's get started on your road to transformation. Let's start piecing together your hormone puzzle one step at a time. Hi, beautiful souls. Welcome back to the Hormone Puzzle Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Kela Smith, a holistic and integrative fertility and hormones doctor and creator of the Hormone Puzzle Method, as well as founder of the Hormone Puzzle Society and the Hormone Puzzle Society's Educational Institute. And today's episode is all about ovulation. So whether you're trying to conceive naturally, you are just tracking your cycle, or you just want to understand your body better, this episode is for you. And I feel every woman deserves to know this information, and it's honestly what I wish had been taught in health class, because I find so many people that I work with don't know the basics around ovulation, timing their cycle, timing their intercourse to get pregnant, and to make sure that they're even ovulating in a healthy way. So on this episode, we're going to dive into what ovulation is and why it matters, how to know if you're actually ovulating, so how to read your body signs. We're going to talk about tools and signs to track for ovulation. We're going to talk about some things that can throw off your ovulation. And then we're going to give you some practical steps on how to support healthy ovulation holistically. So are you ready? I'm so excited for this show. So let's just dive right in. So let's just start with the basics. What is ovulation? So ovulation is when your follicle releases a mature egg. This happens in the ovaries, and for most women, it'll happen right in the middle of your menstrual cycle. So usually around day like 14 to 17 if you're having a 28-day to 30-day cycle. So understanding when you ovulate is crucial for timing your intercourse, especially if you're trying to conceive or you're trying to avoid conception. So let's talk about why ovulation matters for fertility. So without ovulation, there's no egg. And so therefore, there's no conception without an egg. And ovulation is also a marker of overall hormonal health. It's the results of a well-orchestrated hormonal dance between the brain, we're talking about the hypothalamus and the pituitary here, and the ovaries. And so for my ladies listening who are trying to conceive, this will give us a critical green light for baby making. So knowing when you ovulate can save you months or even years of uncertainty and infertility. And like I said earlier, I can't tell you how many couples that I've worked with where the main cause of their fertility issues was timing their intercourse wrong. And I mean years and years of trying to conceive, and it was all based around the wrong timing. And so they weren't getting pregnant because they weren't timing correctly. So we're going to talk about this today. And when you are done listening to this episode, you will know how to time your intercourse for conception. Or if you're listening to this for hormones and you're trying to avoid pregnancy, you can also use it for that. So how do you know if you're ovulating? Let's talk about some natural signals that you can pay attention to pinpoint if you're actually ovulating or not. So the best way to determine ovulation is to look at your cervical mucus. And this is a mucus that the cervix creates. When you're leading up to ovulation, you'll start to notice more of a lotion consistency. It's thicker, it's cloudier. And so that means you're heading into ovulation. Once you see that mucus become clear and stretchy, almost like egg whites, that means you are right on top of ovulation. That means you will ovulate within 36 hours of seeing that cervical mucus if you're going to ovulate on this cycle. And this is your body's way of helping sperm survive in the reproductive tract. So when you see this egg white cervical mucus, you know it's go time. And I would even recommend you do a little before you see that cervical mucus, and we'll start to talk about that. Once you learn how to track your cycle and you know what your specific body is going to do, then that will tell you, you'll be able to pinpoint with a little more accuracy when it's time to time your intercourse. And so again, when you see the cervical mucus, that means you will ovulate within 36 hours if you're going to ovulate this cycle. Cervical mucus doesn't confirm ovulation. It just means that your body is primed and getting ready to ovulate. So the next thing you're going to look at when we're determining ovulation is your basal body temperature, your BBT. So this will happen after you ovulate. Your temperature will rise slightly, 0.5 to 1 degrees Fahrenheit. And this is because the progesterone that comes out of the corpus luteum, which is what your follicle turns into, it's this little gland that pumps out progesterone. And this is a hormone that does basically what it says. It's a progestation hormone. So it gets your body ready to gestate the egg and the sperm, which will turn into the embryo. So when you're doing BBT, basal body temperature tracking, you'll look for those high temperatures. You want to have one is good, but really I want to see 3 high temperatures in a row. That's going to confirm that you ovulated. So basal body temperature is the only body sign that actually confirms ovulation. So if you're not getting a high temperature reading over the 3 days after ovulation, even if you saw cervical mucus, that just means that your cervix was getting ready for ovulation, but you never actually ovulated, because the only way to confirm is through that BBT, because the only way the progesterone leaves the follicle is when the egg ovulates. So if that doesn't happen, there's no progesterone, there's no high temperature rise. So again, BBT is the only way to confirm ovulation. The next sign of ovulation is a German word called Mittelsmerz. And this is, not every woman experiences this, but some women do. And this is a twinge or a cramp in the lower abdomen area when the egg releases from the ovary. So some women do feel ovulation pain, and that's a telltale sign that you actually ovulated. But not everybody will feel this. So don't feel like if you don't feel this, you didn't ovulate. But some people will. So be mindful of that if you feel cramping after you see that cervical mucus or in the middle part of your cycle. Some women also report changes in libido. Your body is smart, and many women will experience a surge in their sex drive around ovulation, and that's really biology doing its job. Some women will have breast tenderness or mood changes. So as estrogen peaks and starts to get the follicle ready for ovulation, you might notice that the breasts are a little more tender. That's just that estrogen. And some women will have mood swings, bloating. You'll just feel a little more lethargic. So all of these signs can point to your body is getting ready to ovulate. So let's talk about some tools that can help predict ovulation. So the most basic thing to use is an OPK. This is an ovulation predictor kit. And these are testing for your LH surge, which is your luteinizing hormone. So your luteinizing hormone tells FSH to release, which is your follicle stimulating hormone. Your follicle stimulating hormone tells the ovary, tells estrogen to release from the ovary, which gets the follicle ready to bust an egg out of it, so it helps it to grow. And then once the egg ovulates out of the follicle, then that's when the progesterone begins to release, and that gets the uterus ready for implantation. So predicting through OPK, that's just one piece of a prediction kit. So I tell my patients, don't put too much stock into what the OPK says. It's just one piece of data. So use those with a grain of salt, but they can be helpful to see if your body's actually getting a surge of LH. And so I think I do recommend that you use these, but don't make this be your only way to predict ovulation. Definitely pay attention to those other signs I said earlier. Also, fertility tracking apps. These are super helpful, and I actually almost like the apps better, especially if it's something where you're actually putting bodily fluids into the app. So there's apps like Mira where you're actually peeing on a stick and inserting that into a device, and that's reading your hormone metabolites, so it can tell you your LH, your FSH, your estrogen, even your progesterone, your PGT. So making sure that you can use the OPKs. They're going to be less expensive, but the tracking devices where you actually put in some of your bodily fluids, urine, those are going to be more accurate. But again, we always want to do cervical mucus tracking and BBT tracking. Those are pretty much free or very inexpensive, and they are going to be more accurate than the OPKs. Some women also decide to do more advanced functional lab testing. So we can do things like a Dutch test, which is a dried urine hormone test, looking how, not just what your levels are, but how you're actually detoxing. We can also do things like, we can look at stool testing and hair tissue mineral testing, and many of these functional tests also can show us markers of strong ovulation and hormone balance. So let's talk about what can disrupt ovulation. So there's a few things here that you might not have thought of. First, poor diet and nutrient deficiencies. If I have a patient that is eating, they're eating the standard American diet, lots of fast foods, some soft drinks, some packaged foods, I see a lot of times that population will have nutrient deficiencies, which leads to hormone imbalance, which leads to lower or poor ovulation. Also, chronic stress. Stress is, stress can wreak havoc on our hormones. It can disrupt our HPA axis, which is our hypothalamic, pituitary, and adrenal axis. If your body is stuck in fight or flight, that also can cause hormone imbalance and ovulation issues. So make sure that you're managing your stress appropriately. You are managing your external stress, removing things from your life that aren't serving you, but also managing your internal stress. Do you have nutrient deficiencies? Do you have gut health issues, immune system issues? Any of these things can cause ovulation issues, so make sure that you're addressing them accordingly. PCOS can also cause ovulation issues. A lot of times my PCOS patients they have a lot of follicles and they have a lot of eggs, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they are ovulating and it's a strong ovulation. So a lot of times PCOS, you'll have issues with insulin and insulin resistance, and PCOS is a metabolic condition. And so if you do have this, if you've been diagnosed with this, treating it accordingly will help to make sure that your ovulation is strong. The other thing is thyroid dysfunction. So hypothyroid and hyperthyroid both of those can cause ovulation issues. So if you're having any symptoms of thyroid imbalance, Extreme exercise or undereating can cause this. Coming off of hormonal birth control, environmental toxins, and endocrine disruptors. So really looking at your beauty products, your cleaning products, anything that has a chemical in it can cause ovulation disruption. And so if you're not ovulating regularly or you suspect that you're not, this means that your body is out of alignment. But the good news is you can get it back on track. You can balance your hormones holistically. You can get your ovulation back on track. So here's a few suggestions I have for helping the body to do that. So first, we just talked about this, but as a nutritionist, I cannot not say this multiple times, but we want to prioritize whole food balanced nutrition, getting all the colors of the rainbow, eating lots of fruits and vegetables, healthy fats like avocados, nuts and seeds, olive oil, protein at every meal. I feel so many women are under eating protein. Even if you're a vegetarian, get really creative with eating enough protein and eating a good variety of plant proteins. I would recommend, if you're not a vegetarian for religious reasons, you really reconsider that, especially when you're trying to conceive, because protein is a building block for hormones, especially strong ovulation with estrogen and progesterone. Also, don't fear carbs. Eat root vegetables and whole grains. Make sure they're gluten-free, and really just make sure you're eating a good variety of whole foods and eat for hormonal health. Next is blood sugar, making sure you're balancing your blood sugar. Stable blood sugar is great for hormones. We want to eat every 3 to 4 hours. We want to have carbs and protein together at every meal with a little bit of fat. We want to avoid skipping meals. We want to work on reducing inflammation. So cutting out any food that causes inflammation, such as sugar, processed foods, dairy if you're sensitive, gluten for some people, really focusing on an anti-inflammatory diet. We already kind of talked about that, but again, lots of fruits and vegetables, leafy greens, berries, and omega-3 fatty acids from foods like fish and nuts and seeds. Supplements, there are a few supplements that you can take to help with ovulation. Definitely check with your healthcare provider before you add a new supplement. But these are some of the ones that have worked for my patients in my clinic. So myo-inositol, especially if you have PCOS, B complex, especially B6 and B12, especially if you have a methylation issue, you have an MTHFR gene mutation, you want to be taking a good high quality B complex. Magnesium glycinate, vitamin D, zinc, selenium. Even for some people, chasteberry tree or Vitex is going to help with ovulation and progesterone production. Practice cycle optimizing, cycle syncing, and stress relief. Incorporate gentle movement, especially during your follicular and ovulatory phases. During luteal and your menstrual cycle, you want to do more slow, gentle, restorative movements. Follicular and ovulatory, you can turn up the heat and do more intense workouts. Ditch the endocrine disruptors, swap out your plastic containers, avoid synthetic fragrance, and use clean beauty products and cleaning products. So let's talk about my journey for a second, because this was one of my issues with ovulation. One, I wasn't timing my intercourse correctly. I thought you had sex at any time during the month and you would get pregnant. I never really, before I got into the fertility space, I didn't really focus on learning my body signs. And it sounds so stupid when I say that now, but it's true. I was on birth control pill from the time I was about 13 years old. Never was taught that could harm my future fertility. I was a personal trainer for 10 years. I was very thin, very fit. I had lost my cycle and didn't even realize it. So I think it was a combination of the birth control and the overexercising, undereating. And I was never officially diagnosed, but I'm pretty sure now, knowing what I know, that I had hypothalamic amenorrhea, where the hypothalamus in the brain is so stressed, it causes it to pause your body's ability to make hormones, especially FSH, LH, estrogen, and progesterone. And so really identifying that I probably had HA in the past and working to learn my ovulatory signs, timing my intercourse appropriately, that allowed me to get pregnant not once, but twice. Yes, there was some other things that went into that, but that was the main thing. I did that. Both babies were natural conception. I didn't go through IVF. And that's now what I teach my patients and why I'm so passionate about this topic. So that concludes the first half of our show. We're going to take a short break now. We're going to hear a word from our sponsors. When we come back, we're going to dive even deeper into tracking, predicting, and optimizing ovulation so we can boost your chances for getting and staying pregnant. So we'll be right back. Trying to get pregnant or simply want to better understand your cycle. Knowing if and when you are ovulating and whether your body is producing enough progesterone is key. That's where P.U.Z.Z.L.E makes all the difference. It's the only FDA-cleared at-home test that measures PDG, the hormone marker that confirms successful ovulation and helps support implantation. I recommend P.U.Z.Z.L.E to every client that's serious about understanding their fertility, because when it comes to your cycle, clarity brings confidence. Tap into the power of hormone tracking. Visit PROVETest.com/puzzle for a special discount and to get started today. Welcome back. So let's talk about some steps for healthy ovulation. And this is almost like a blueprint for timing your intercourse correctly for conception. So the first step is to know when you ovulate. So again, just to recap, ovulation usually happens 14 days before your next period. But this isn't the same with every woman or every cycle. So really start looking at your signs of ovulation. So if you have a 28-day cycle, then you'll ovulate on day 14, which is pretty rare for most people. If you have a 30-day cycle, you'll probably ovulate on day 16. If you have a 26-day cycle, you'll ovulate around day 12. The key here is you want to track those signs of ovulation, but you also want to make sure that you have at least 12 days between the time that you ovulate through your next period. So that gives the length of the luteal phase is really important. It gives the egg and sperm time to make it down the reproductive tract, to meet each other, the sperm to fertilize the egg, and then make it down into the uterus and start to implant. So step number 2 is to choose your tracking method. And again, there's different levels of ovulation tracking. And I encourage you to do a combination of multiple tracking. So the first level is body awareness and daily signs. So this is going to be your cervical mucus tracking. So you want to watch for that clear, stretchy egg white discharge. This is your libido getting higher. So really looking to see, do you feel in the mood to have sex? And if so, that's a good sign. Ovulation pain, again, that dull ache or twinge in the lower abdomen around the ovaries. Even mood changes and energy dips, these are all signs that your body is getting ready to ovulate. And start writing these down, journal these, get a tracking app. Tracking's not just for period days, but also for these signs too. Now, level 2 for tracking is going to be your basal body temperature tracking. Again, we're already watching cervical mucus in that first half, but then once you think you ovulated, we really want to do the temperature tracking. So you can either get just a cheap BBT thermometer at your local drugstore or grocery store or places like Target or Walmart. But you can do that, or you can get a wearable like Temp Drop or Oura Ring. If you decide to do the thermometer, you want to make sure that you're doing it first thing in the morning. That is the thing with BBT. There's a lot of human error if you don't have a wearable. So we really want to make sure that we're doing this first thing in the morning before your feet hit the ground, before you get up to go to the bathroom. You want to check your BBT. And you want to look for a rise in temperature, typically 0.5 to 1.0, which will confirm ovulation. You want to track this over 3 cycles. And you want to look for your unique patterns of when you actually ovulate. Level 3 would be throwing in some of these predictor kits, using OPKs or LH testing strips. And with this, some tips around this is you really want to look for testing a few days before you expect to ovulate. And a positive OPK means that you will ovulate within 24 to 36 hours. So 1 to 3 days you will ovulate once you get that positive OPK. That's just your LH trying to trigger your FSH to hit the ovary, which is going to ovulate that egg. So sometimes that can take a couple of days. And LH strips are best taken midday, not first thing in the morning with that first morning urine. You want to do that midday. You can also do wearables like TempDrop, OvaSense, even Mira has some advanced tracking that we talked about earlier. Aura Ring is also a really good wearable. So step 3, you want to identify and maximize your fertile window. So this is going to be 5 days before ovulation, the day of ovulation, and the day after. But honestly, your peak fertility day, if you have to pick just one day in there, would be the day before ovulation. So once you see that egg white cervical mucus and you get a positive OPK, I want you to plan your intercourse every other day. Don't do it every day because that will deplete the sperm that we need and you'll be playing with second string. We want first string sperm. So every other day. And a little caveat here, or a little pro tip, sperm can live in the reproductive tract up to 5 days. The egg can only live 12 to 24 hours. So getting sperm in the reproductive tract before you ovulate is essential to allowing the egg and sperm to meet and fertilize and create an embryo. Step 4 is we really want to pay attention to ovulation disruptors. We talked about this in the first half, but this is going to be things like stress, under and overeating, even conditions like PCOS, thyroid imbalances, coming off a birth control pill. So really tracking your cycle gives you the power to catch these things early and to seek support. Step 5 is going to be optimize ovulation naturally. And many of these things we've already talked about, but let's just reiterate. The best thing that you can do for your fertility, for your ovulation, for your hormone balance, all of it is balanced whole food nutrition. You have so much control over what goes at the end of your fork, so make sure you're eating for fertility. You're focusing on blood sugar balance, protein, fat, fiber every 3 to 4 hours. You're adding in zinc-rich foods like pumpkin seeds, oysters, and organic beef. You're eating B6 and folate-rich foods, so leafy greens, lentils, and avocados. You're having healthy fats, again, avocado, olive oil, nuts, and seeds. Be careful with processed foods, but don't fear complex carbs, such as root vegetables and whole gluten-free grains. Now for supplements, we've already talked about supplements, so I'm not going to go through those again, but just make sure you check with your doctor on supplements for ovulation, and they can confirm if you're able to take the supplements that you're asking about. Lifestyle, again, stress management is key here. Practice cycle optimizing with your workouts, removing endocrine disruptors like plastics and synthetic fragrances, and remember, your body will ovulate when it feels safe, supported, and nourished. So make sure you're hitting all of those pieces as you're working on your fertility. So just to recap, your ovulation blueprint is to understand when you're ovulating, base that around your cycle length, track with a combo of mucus, BBT, and OPK, time your intercourse strategically during your fertile window, watch for red flags or ovulation disruptors, and nourish your body with food, supplements, and stress relief to optimize ovulation naturally. And so as we close, my final thoughts are, I want you to really think about this. Ovulation isn't just about conception. It's about connection. I'm going to say that again because that's so powerful and I want you to get it. I want you to write it down. Ovulation isn't just about conception. It's about connection with your body, your hormones, and your future family. And when you learn to read your body signs, you can reclaim so much power on your fertility journey. And if you're listening to this and you're starting to feel overwhelmed, I just want you to know that you're not alone. I would love to help you take the guesswork out of your cycle. So if you want to learn more about myself, my services, how I can help you with your fertility, I want to encourage you to book a call or even to enroll in one of our fertility programs. And you can learn all of this and more on our website at hormonepuzzlesociety.com. If you want to book a call with me, you can scroll down to the first page and see a little button that says book a discovery call. Those are completely free, so just click on that and pick a time that works for you. Or if you want to learn more about our courses, my books, our resources, you can also go to the page on the website titled Resources and Courses, and it'll have all of that stuff under that topic. So again, thank you so much for being here. I hope you found this show valuable. If you loved this show and you love this podcast, I'd really encourage you to hit that follow button. This is how more people can find our show, and it makes sure you never miss an episode. So click the follow button, share it with a friend, leave us a review. All of these things help our show to grow. And I just am so thrilled to be here with you every week. So I really hope I get to keep doing this forever and ever. So thank you again. And I just want to leave you with, you've got this. I'm here with you every step of the way. And I really want you to hold that close to your heart and know that you can and you will get pregnant. Don't ever give up until you're holding your baby in your arms. I'm here for you. You've got this. I want to leave you with so much love and light. Until next time, I'm just sending you home with love, clarity, and fertile energy. So I hope you have an amazing week, and I'll see you back here next week for another episode of the Hormone Puzzle Podcast. So bye for now. Hey, hang on a second before you go. I've got some fantastic free resources waiting for you over at our website, all designed to support your journey. When I was going through my own 2 years of infertility, I wish that there had been something like this to guide me. There just wasn't. And that's why I created these resources specifically for you. And here's a little secret. The strategies and the foods that I share in these resources are the exact same ones that helped me conceive, not once, but twice, even after being told that it wasn't possible. So trust me, I know these tools work. Make sure you check them out. And I can't wait for you to be my next success story. Thank you so much for joining me today. And don't forget to check the show notes of this episode. If you enjoyed our time together, please hit that subscribe button and leave us a review. This would mean so much to me, and it's how more people just like you can find our show. See you next week on the Hormone Puzzle Podcast.